Welcome back to the Bluebloods, the official podcast of FCS Football Central on SI, presented by FanDuel. And our guest today is one of the greatest high school coaches in Utah history. Won over 82% of his games as a high school head coach, has won 7 state championships throughout his career, holds the longest winning streak in Utah high school history at 48 games over 3 seasons. Now he's the new head football coach of Weber State. Eric Kjar, everybody. Coach Kjar, I appreciate you joining the show today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So, this is the easiest first question of all time when we have a new head coach on the show. What was it about Weber State that made it the right time and the right job for you to take?
Probably the biggest thing is just close to, where I've kind of settled at this point, and then just understanding the area, the schools to recruit, the areas, the area of Utah, like knowing that dynamic and how to recruit the state, I think made it really enticing and just a good job. I felt like for me to jump in, and the timing was right for where I'm at with my own family. I have a son that was already playing here, one that was up at Utah State that transferred down. I have a high school junior that's going to be a senior. I would have liked to have probably maybe waited a year, but you don't know how timing works on that kind of stuff. But again, the state, and Weber, I feel like facility wise, support wise, has the ability to be a really good program and something where you can build something special at the FCS level and a close proximity to the talent that's around this part of the state that I think we really have an ability to kind of connect with and recruit.
This is an unconventional move, right? We really don't see a
Oh, yeah.
ton of high school head coaches jump straight to a Division I job. Was this the first college offer you had in your career, or was this the first opportunity you had presented to jump to a Division I program?
There had been other opportunities, but first, this was probably the first one that really was head coach type opportunity. Some of them had been like coordinator and things like that, and really hadn't even gone down. I had my interest gauged by people and hadn't even really gone down that road because I didn't feel like the timing was right. Unlike this time where it kind of went further down the road and got into the process of, interviewing and doing those things. So
How obviously you have a strong history as a head coach at the high school level in this state over there in Utah. How important is it going to be to continue to build those pipelines, and how important do you think your connections are on the high school level and to make Weber State a destination for some of the top high school guys in the state?
yeah, Utah's for sure going to be our recruiting, lifeline as far as what our program is going to be and how it's going to be built up. And we'll make sure we win the state and recruit hard here. And then just those connections with the coaches too, knowing those guys for years at all levels and being around them and, them being your peers and still are making those connections and, identify and know, those guys on a close level and get recommendations from them as we move further into the future of our program. And me getting a little bit of separated more away from the high school side, I'll rely on that heavily. This year was kind of nice because I had seen a lot of the kids and coached against them for a long time and knew about them. So this part, as we move forward and I get further away from that, relying on that part is going to be really, really important.
How do you plan on, and obviously this is still, I mean, man, you just got to the job. So I understand, maybe if we're still working this out, and I've had a range of answers to this. How are you and your staff going to balance high school versus portal recruiting? Because obviously we see, and I'm sure you see it on social media, there's some FCS schools, man, that are signing 70 plus guys out of the portal every single year. And there's
Yeah.
some teams that still want to be high school heavy. How are you and your staff balancing that?
We want to be high school heavy for sure. It's something we've talked about and felt like it's the best route for our future here in trying to build up our program, but also build enough depth in our program. And we understand that we're going to probably lose kids at times to the portal too. And there'll be times where we might get into the portal a little bit. And we did probably more than what we wanted to this first year, but also backed it up with a lot of high school kids and developing relationships with younger kids that we've brought in, and trying to maintain that, because I think once you do kind of get into the portal, you run a little bit of the risk of staying in it some, just by the product, but like how it overturns each year if you're doing that. So you have to be really careful. And then also in doing that, like if you're doing that a lot and those are the kids you're playing, you're never really developing the kids that you have to build enough depth, and you're worried about depth all the time. Whereas I think if you do it right and you develop your high school kids the right way, you lose that top tier, your starter guy, he jumps in the portal. Hopefully you're building it up at a point where that next guy in line can play. And at some point, like, I know a lot of this conversation's been had and it's been talked about, like development's still going to be critical. Whereas like sometimes, that gets thrown out, the development's gone out of college football, and it hasn't, like there's got to be, then there are programs that are still doing it and doing it the right way. It just is in a different way than I think what it used to be. Whereas, you'd get a kid in, you'd have them for 2 or 3 years of development time, and then they would play. I think now that development has just been expedited a little bit, where they're having to develop earlier and faster and be able to move up that chain quicker. And hopefully we as coaches, we don't get impatient. I think the high school athlete's still so important, and that's going to be really where all the athletes eventually have to come from anyway, right? So whether they cycle back through the portal or back the other way. But I think that's important for us moving forward, just to kind of get back to your question, that we have to win our state high school wise and develop our kids here local. That's our foundation. And we don't want to veer too far off of that.
I had a question here about building a winning culture, and just to kind of set the groundwork for this question for people who might not be familiar with you. You are 112-10 over the past 9 seasons as a head coach at the high school level at Corner Canyon, won 6 state championships over that time. And even going back to your first stint, I believe it was at Jordan High School, you won a state championship there as well. When you have time to reflect on what you've built at these 2 schools, what is the DNA of a championship culture, and how do you build that from the ground up?
I think there's I've always felt this way. Like, I think your strength conditioning part of your program is the best way to build that across the board, because it helps you in so many different ways. Like, it's where you find your leaders, it's where you find your workers, it's where you find your guys that encourage and can kind of build some unity and camaraderie amongst your teammates. And then, through that, you're doing testing, and you got guys encouraging each other and stepping up and just helping each other out. And really, there's no way to better mimic that education that they get from that than doing it there, and then transitioning that into your program and building an environment where they, care about each other and they want to see each other be successful in the weight room, and then carrying that over to the field. And then also, developing that hard work part, your leaders, like, you can do tough things and create some toughness in your program through the weight room. It's really where our culture had been established at both of those 2 places, and will continue to be here. And our involvement in that, and showing that, that's something that is really important to us. And our coaches are in there all the time with them now, along with myself. And we're trying to really establish that and create just a close-knit group of guys that care about each other and that want to compete and have that tight bond from a cultural standpoint, that they're going to, carry that over to the field and be able to do some special things out there.
It was famously said on this show by my guy, Coach Killo, down in Incarnate Word, when he took the Incarnate Word job, and said the first 3 to 4 months for a college head coach nowadays is like trying to drink water from a fire hose. He said he said, like, it's just a lot. Where are you right now? You're going into month 4. Have things started to settle down? And just looking back at your first 3 months, man, what was the biggest challenge you had to overcome stepping into the job?
It definitely fire hose, like, for sure. Just starting off, he's 100% correct. It's you're doing so much. We overturned our roster, and we had to completely rebuild that. We're around 70 new faces around here in our program, which is is not ideal for what you want to try to do moving forward, but it's something that where this program was at the time and trying to rebuild some things, developing a new staff, creating plans moving forward on what type of team we want to be and the culture where we want to create here. Putting in scheme, recruiting the right kids, and all those type of things become a big part of it. But probably the biggest part that was hard for me, or that was the biggest obstacle to overcome, was just that challenge of rebuilding the roster and finding guys and the right guys that fit into your program. And then making sure that, we're following what we want long-term in our program with these kids. These young men that we're bringing in, do they fit what we want? Are we taking another step laterally or backwards by bringing in that kid in our program moving forward, down the road too? There was a lot of things you evaluated, and kind of just kept you up at night a little bit on making sure that you're doing things the right way and that it fits what our administration wants in our program too, which is an important piece. When you're trying to recreate and reestablish a program and rebuild a culture, there's a lot of pieces that go into that. And Coach was right for sure. It's been a lot, but that's probably been really the biggest piece, is doing that.
When you look going into spring, you guys obviously starting next week as we're recording this. What are just obviously you guys probably going to have a ton of position battles. That just comes with the territory of having a new head coach, a new staff. Is there a positional group on each side of the ball you feel like is most important, or you're most looking forward to watching this spring?
Yeah. Offensively, I would say is our quarterback position group is going to be a big one for us to identify where we're at and really find our guy out of that group. And then on the flip side of that, I think our safeties, because they're kind of like your quarterback on that side of the team, along with our linebackers. That's a tough call between those two. I like what we have at some of those safety spots, but also linebacker too. There's some just kind of, I would say, maybe a little bit more unknown there than where we are at safety. So I think that linebacker group is probably one that I'm pretty intrigued by, and seeing how they come out of spring and how things progress for them. And just, they're so critical in being able to be in that, middle piece of the defense, of being able to control things run game wise and in the box. And then also, they're your leaders as far as, typically our calls and everything else, but then also contributing in the pass game too. And you can do a lot with them. And we ask a lot of those guys too, from a scheme standpoint. So I think that piece is going to be critical. And then that quarterback group with Devin Brown's going to come back and be a part of, his familiarity with me. And he was with me at Corner Canyon for one season, and it was at Ohio State and Cal. And then there's two really capable kids that were already in the program too, that Cash McCollum and then Kingston. Both of those guys are really, really special players. And I really liked what they did last year on the field too. I watched Cash through some spring stuff because my son was up here at the time as a receiver. So I got to see Cash. Cash made a lot of plays in the spring and did a lot of good things. And he's an athletic kid too. And then Kingston, Tisdale, who started some games last year for him and made a lot of plays and beat Northern Arizona at the end of the year and played really, really well in that game. And I think he's got some really good leadership capabilities with his teammates already. That group's going to be really critical, and is with any team. I mean, I think obviously you got to have a really good team around your quarterback position, but to be really successful, especially at this level and higher levels, you have to be really good at that position and have a guy in there you can trust and someone that you entrust to control that offense and kind of take the reins and be the leader over there.
I've seen head coaches take a bunch of different roles, right? You have the more CEO type head coaches, hands off. I'm gonna run the organization, but we also have guys who call plays or very involved with a certain position. What kind of approach are you going to take? Is there a certain position you're going to be very hands on with? Are you going to call plays, or are you going to be more of the CEO approach as a head coach?
I'll call plays, and some of that, like you look at it when I took the job. I kind of had planned on doing that anyway, but you kind of look at maximizing like your salary pool for coaches at this level and how to really kind of do some of those things. I think you can kind of kill two birds with one stone if it's something you've done for a long time, which I have. Being a play caller and something that you can manage that way and still feel like I'm doing a good enough job running the team in general. So decided to go that route, and I'm excited about that. Position wise, I'll be involved with the quarterbacks. I have a good quarterbacks coach, though. Coach Larson, Zach Larson, will really kind of do most of that part, so I can be more of the overall voice in our program. And then also, I'll have my hand in all the game planning and scripting and practice design stuff. And as we move forward out of that part, but yeah, that's going to kind of be the role as far as what I do is on the field, is doing a little bit more of that and scheme stuff.
The last few questions, one of which is for someone who's never seen an Eric Kjar offense, what type of scheme are you looking to run at Weber? And are there any fundamental things that Weber fans could expect to maybe change from the past schemes that they've seen in the past handful of years?
Probably the biggest thing I think is our ability has been our ability to create big plays, both pass game and run game wise. I think we've done a really, really good job of that, and that's an important indicator usually of your team's success, especially from an offensive standpoint. And that'll continue to be something we'll try to create here, is try to get into some big play things and be aggressive. For sure. I've never been really much of a conservative play caller in my career, and don't intend to start that now. But I do think where we are a little, or where our scheme has been a little misconstrued in the past, is that we're just pass heavy. But I mean, if you look at what we've done over the course of our career as an offense, like, it's been really, really balanced from run to pass. And I think you'll see that continually. I think to be really good on offense, you want to have that balance. You need to, keep defenses honest, both in the run box, but also in the secondary too. And, if they start creeping down, you're going to try to do some things to take advantage, and just trying to, understand what teams are going to game plan and how they're going to game plan for you week in, week out, and try to have some plans ahead of that and then utilize those plans, I think, is something that I've been able to do well, just personally as a coach, and would continue to strive to continue to get better at that and put our team in the best situation we can to be explosive on offense.
How did you go about building your staff? Were there certain qualities you were looking for with guys? Did you bring a lot of guys that you already had connections with? Just kind of walk me through how you approach building the staff around you at Weber.
Yeah, some of both. Some of them are guys I had connections with, or new guys that knew them, and took a lot of recommendations from guys I respected in the state where some guys were from. That we grabbed a couple of guys from Utah and BYU, and just knowing their staff and getting strong recommendations on those guys. And those are guys that I trusted and knew well, and could really trust in who they were recommended. And then some of the guys I already knew, and then some of the guys that were here to just kind of a compilation of just all of that into one, building this group. And guys that have good local connections, most of them have a good local tie to the state of Utah, and are going to be, integral in that, us really, that being our lifeblood recruiting wise, helping us get those type of players and evaluate those guys. And then just good dudes with a lot of energy that want to get this thing going. So that was a lot of it too, trying to find guys that care and are passionate about it, but have the right energy for it.
And then the last question, Coach, is my favorite question. It's the fans' favorite question. So I'm always curious on Coach's perspective, and I think this could even tie into your days at high school, because we see a lot of changes in high school. Because college football is an ever-changing world, man. Me and you could be talking right now, and a new transfer portal rule be
Oh, yeah.
announced in an hour. How do you balance between non-negotiables of your program's culture and what makes you and your staff great, but also staying flexible and evolving as the game changes underneath you every single day? How do you balance those two things?
So I mean, that part's always like tough in how, because I mean, it's evolved. I've been coaching. This will be my 22nd year of doing this, and over the course of those 22 years, I mean, even just the way I've operated has changed a little bit in how you're doing that. And then I think one thing at this level too, like you have your standards, right, in your program that are non-negotiable, and those are still non-negotiable as well. But also you add in the respect, of them as a human being, and trying to build them up, and also doing what's best for them in their future too, that you have to take into consideration, not necessarily just like, this is our rule, this is how it is, it's black and white. I think you do have to have a little bit of side where you are managing it, of what's best for the student athlete and what's best for the players in your program, and how you can help them and how you can build them up and teach them something that maybe they wouldn't learn if you just truly followed, like, hey, this is my black and white policy. This is what your discipline is and how you're going to deal with it. And then also we utilize their peers too. Our leadership council is involved in some of those things as well too. But I do think like it is a balance. And you have to have that now, I think, with the way things have gone. And I think Coach Saban has always talked about that part of it, right? Caring about the guys that he had, and not, giving up on kids too early, and just cutting them and getting rid of them when there are some things that arise that, maybe they've made mistakes, or they've messed up, but you give them opportunities to learn and grow from them. And I think every coach has had kids that have done that and have been better for working through that and giving them a chance to work through some of those things. So I think trying to battle or balance all of that, and give, as long as you're doing right by your student athlete and you feel like you're doing that, and the rest of your team combined with that, and it's something that your culture, like in the community and everything else, can handle and stay intact, I think is really the best way of trying to balance those things. It's a long answer for like the question, but yeah, that's a complicated answer nowadays, especially.
It is, man. And Coach, we had Coach Vegan on earlier this offseason. He said the same thing. He was like, "I'm sorry that was such a long answer," but he was like, "That question requires so many different
It does.
moving parts." And I just like to get a idea of how different coaches approach it, because man, I think you guys, like, to be a college. It was hard to be a college coach 30 years ago, but I still don't think it pales in comparison to everything you guys have to go through today with
Yeah.
how
There's a
how, how
really
often.
a lot of moving parts for sure.
It absolutely is. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time so much, man. I congratulate you on the job. I'm really, really excited to see where Weber goes from here. And guys, make sure to go follow Coach Kjar on all social media. His Twitter is below his name right there. Make sure to subscribe, like the show wherever you listen. But for the Blue Bloods, FCS Football Central on SI, myself, and Coach Eric Kjar, we are out for right now.